The Reserve Bank keeps official interest rates on hold. House prices rose last month, but some of the heat has come out of the market. And the mighty Matildas smashed viewer records not just for women's sport, but for all programs this year. Welcome to Fear and Greed Business News, Australia's best business podcast. It is Wednesday, the 2nd of August, 2023. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, after the show, you are speaking with Carlos Cacho, who we haven't spoken to for a while now. He's the chief economist at Jarden, and he is a fantastic communicator when it comes to all things interest rates and Reserve Bank and the lot.
And that's what we talked to him about today. He is a good man, Carlos. He's been watching the economy for a long time, and he's got some interesting takes on what the Reserve Bank did yesterday, why they did it, and whether or not there are going to be more rate rises.
Yeah, stick around for that one. It's coming up a little bit later on, and that is really the main story this morning, isn't it? The Reserve Bank has left the official benchmark on hold, but warned there might be more rate rises needed if inflation doesn't keep falling.
It's become the central bank's playbook the past couple of months. Keep rates on hold, but signal that more rate rises are in the offing. Now, in part, that's about keeping inflation expectations anchored and people thinking that there might be more rate rises, even if there's not. Yesterday, outgoing Reserve Bank Governor Philip Lowe, in his penultimate board meeting, said the decision to keep the official cash rate at 4.1% will provide further time to assess the impact of previous rate increases. He said higher rates are working to establish a more sustainable balance between supply and demand in the economy. Now, Michael, that's Reserve Bank speak for rate rises are doing their job. Lowe doesn't expect inflation to return to the bank's 2 to 3% target range until late 2025, which is just a touch later than the bank's previous projections.
Sean, how much of this would be kind of giving a little bit more room to move, considering how badly the Reserve Bank, and in particular Philip Lowe, was burnt by the previous predictions where they were quite clear about rates not going to rise until 2024 at the earliest, that kind of thing?
I actually think that was the anathema. I think that was the odd one out when he said that rates wouldn't rise till 2024. We are back to more business as usual as far as the bank is concerned, kind of saying, not doing something, but suggesting they might lift rates or having a bias towards cutting rates, or that's kind of more business as usual for the Reserve Bank. That one-off last year where Philip Lowe talked about 2024, that was just really unusual for the Reserve Bank, and he hasn't kept his job, so he sort of paid the price for that.
Yeah. Now, yesterday's decision, good news obviously for mortgage holders, but after 12 rate rises since May 2022, it's pretty extraordinary, they are still pretty high.
Yes. In fact, they are at their highest level since 2012. As Treasurer Jim Chalmers said yesterday, the decision to keep rates on hold is a welcome reprieve for borrowers. Phil Lowe is worried that the full impact of those rate rises haven't hit yet, and that's part of the reason the Reserve Bank wants to wait and see. Now, last week, figures showed that inflation had slowed to 6% from 7%. That gave Lowe and the board room to move this week. It's interesting that Phil Lowe talked a bit about services inflation. He said that it's been surprisingly persistent overseas. Could do the same thing here. I think that is something to watch, and that may perhaps give us the best indication of just whether or not interest rates will rise anymore.
And services inflation, the official definition of that?
Oh, well, I don't know about the official definition, but, you have goods and services. So goods are stuff that you buy, a fridge, TV, that sort of stuff. Services are services you consume. That might be travel is a good example. Education is another service. Lots of things that not as tangible that you buy and sell.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Just here taking notes so I can claim your knowledge as my own. How did local markets respond to the news yesterday, Sean?
The S&P ASX 200 jumped sharply after the early afternoon announcement, but then lost some ground. Eventually, it finished the day up 0.5% to 7,451 points. Investors like the idea that rates might not increase too much more because that should help earnings. Among the large caps, BHP, Macquarie Group, Fortescue Metals, Wesfarmers, Woolies and WiseTech Global all closed around 1% higher. Telstra, Rio and Commonwealth Bank were among the few large caps to end the day lower. The gold stocks did particularly well, with market leader Newcrest Mining up 1.6%. Commonwealth Bank was down, but it came out yesterday and said that when it reports in a couple of weeks' time, it will recognise a $212 million loss related to the transition of Bank West's business portfolio. It bought Bank West a few years ago. So the transition of the portfolio to the mainline Commonwealth Bank brand. There's also costs associated with the one-off levy for the compensation scheme of last resort, which was implemented by Parliament a couple of months ago. Shares in retailer Adairs jumped 6% after the bedding and linen company said it will take back operational control of its national distribution centre from DHL supply chain. And lithium miner Patriot Battery Metals. This has been a really interesting... Ooh, you like the name, do you?
Patriot Battery Metals. Oh, yeah. That's a powerful sounding company.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And it's been a pretty powerful company this year. It's up about 125% this year. Lots of speculation around it. Yesterday, US lithium giant Albemarle took a 6.4% interest in the company. That sent its share price, that Patriot's share price, up 10%. Interesting to watch this one.
Yeah, indeed. Now, what's happening in international markets?
Beijing continues to roll out support for the world's second largest economy, aiding market confidence. Yesterday, authorities said they'd boost credit to private companies and extend other funding measures to small firms. That seems to be what people are watching very closely globally at the moment. In commodity markets, oil continues to hold its ground, with Brent crude trading around $85 a barrel. Gold's around $1,960 an ounce, and the Aussie dollar fell slightly after the rate announcement yesterday. It's buying around 66.6 US cents.
Oh, 666. I guess you could say the exchange rate has gone to hell. Oh, my God.
Oh, dear.
Just scraping the bottom of the barrel for that one. We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, national average home prices rose 0.7% last month, the fifth rise in a row, though the pace of increases has slowed.
Prices are now up 4.1% since their lows in February, and like the fall in house prices last year and the recovery in the first half of this year, Sydney is leading the way in terms of a slowdown in price gains. While prices in the city rose 0.9% in July, that's about half the clip experienced in May. In contrast, Brisbane and Adelaide are accelerating. The pace of increases is about 1.4%, while Canberra saw prices fall in July by 0.1%. Melbourne prices were up 0.3% during the month. Distilling all that, Adelaide and Perth house prices are trading around record levels, but everywhere else, prices are still some way below their peaks, with Hobart being the worst performing capital city. This is all about not enough supply given the demand in the market, but we know more supply is coming on, so the next few months are going to be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, they certainly will be. Now, in politics, the voice referendum kicked off question time yesterday with Prime Minister Anthony Albanese saying the proposal for an Indigenous voice to Parliament provides Australians with a clear proposition to recognise First Nations people in the Constitution.
Albanese had been asked by opposition leader Peter Dutton whether he'd been dishonest when saying the voice was unrelated to treaty. Now, outside Parliament, Albanese claimed UNESCO's draft decision on the Great Barrier Reef, whereby it stopped short of declaring the reef as being in danger, as a win for the Labor government. The National Anti-Corruption Watchdog says it's appreciative of the high level of interest. I love the way it put that. Appreciative of the high level of interest, the National Anti-Corruption Watchdog says. It's basically received 541 referrals in its first month of operations.
In 1 month, 541 referrals?
Yeah.
In 31 days?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good demand.
Yeah. And former Prime Minister Scott Morrison has been blasted by Labor alumni over his comments on Monday, in which he claimed the Robo-Debt Royal Commission findings against him made by the Commission were disproportionate, wrong and unsubstantiated. A bunch of people yesterday, Tanya Plibersek, Bill Shorten, opened fire on the former Prime Minister.
Here's a good Aussie success story, Sean. Self-tanner and skincare brand Bondi Sands has been sold to Japan's beauty group KO Corporation for around $450 million.
Yeah, so Bondi Sands was established just 11 years ago by Melbourne businessmen Blair, James and Sean Wilson, with seed funding from Wilson's father, Gary Wilson. Gary Wilson's actually a former AFL player. Now, according to the Financial Review, the three men each own about 1/3 of the business. Bondi Sands claims to be the world's largest player in the do-it-yourself tan market. About 3/4 of its business comes from self-tanning products. The rest is sun care and skincare. It has a fast-growing business in the US and Britain, where its products are now sold in Boots and Tesco. Launched back in 2012. I remember it recalled its first batch because it actually turned customers green. Very inauspicious start.
I'm sorry, what?
Its first batch it sent out, Bondi Sands, customers turned green rather than tan.
You've got to say then, to go from turning customers green to selling the business for $450 million, that is a spectacular recovery.
It is. Yeah, good on them. I mean, last year revenue was more than $100 million, so they've done very well for themselves, and good luck to them.
Is that your chosen tanning brand, Sean?
No, but I must say, as you know, I have children, and I was at a hockey tournament recently, and I'm used to going to rugby tournaments with my boys, a hockey tournament with my daughter, and at the rugby tournaments, the boys get very fired up before a game. At the hockey tournament, as they were taking off their tracksuits to play hockey, the debate was not about how much they hated the opposition. It was about which fake tan they were using, which had me in hysterics, and they agreed that Bondi Sands was the best. So there you go.
That is fantastic. And the best part is none of them would remember it turning people green, because that was 11 years ago, and that's far too long to be.
Oh, I'm going to get shot for telling that story.
I love that story. That is great. Now, Australia's largest beef group, AACo, has finally responded to the indictment of UK billionaire and major shareholder Joe Lewis in the US a week ago.
In a statement to the ASX, AACo said the indictment alleged that a board member employed by Tavistock. Now, Tavistock is a company that Lewis owns, and then Tavistock owns the shares in AACo. So a board member employed by Tavistock informed Lewis that losses to the company were material. AACo said inquiries have been made of the two relevant board members. They deny sharing information with either Tavistock or Lewis. 86-year-old Lewis, of course, is the billionaire real estate investor and owner of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. He's been charged over multiple alleged instances of insider trading by US prosecutors.
Now, Sean, if I understand this next one correctly, it is a bit of a bad news story for Credit Corp, but it's actually good news for the economy, because the group's net profit fell 5% last year because people are paying their bills.
Yes, and that's somewhat surprising given much higher interest rates, the rising cost of living and a slowdown in the economy. Credit Corp buys books of distressed assets, mostly credit cards and personal loans, off the banks. They buy it at a discounted price, and then they do their best to collect the money. But business isn't too good at the moment, with the company saying the savings buffer built up during the COVID pandemic has really helped consumers out. Others have used early access to superannuation to pay down loans. As a result, Credit Corp business isn't so good. Its share price fell 13% yesterday. Very bad news for shareholders, but actually good news for the economy, as you put it.
Indeed. Now, rare earths company Lynas yesterday said it will now receive close to $400 million from the US government, double the original amount, to build a refinery in Texas.
The Biden government is pushing to make the US less reliant on China, and part of that is to secure supplies of different minerals, including rare earths, which in this case are used in wind turbines, automobiles and things. The US Defense Department will now contribute $258 million towards construction of Lynas's heavy rare earths refinery to reimburse it for construction costs. It's the second upping of support. Initially, Lynas said it would receive $30 million. That was an increase to $120 million. Now $258 million, or about 400 million Aussie. That is the way to build a building.
Oh, that's right. If they just hold out for a bit longer, who knows where it'll end up.
Maybe that's what shareholders were thinking when they pushed its share price up 3% yesterday, Michael.
Now, Sean, TPG Telecom went into a trading halt yesterday after a media report that it was negotiating a multi-billion-dollar sale and leaseback of its non-mobile fibre assets with rival Vocus.
Yeah, so TPG has a stack of debt, about $6.2 billion in debt. The company itself is listed. It's worth about $9.3 billion. Its share price actually didn't do a lot yesterday, and then the Financial Review reported the deal. In 16 minutes, its share price jumped 8% before it went into a trading halt. Now, Vocus Group is owned by Macquarie Asset Management and Aware Super. The report says if the deal is done, TPG will pay down its debt. Anyway, good one to watch.
Yeah, it certainly is. This next story is pretty disturbing, actually. Protesters have allegedly trespassed on the Perth home of Woodside Chief Executive Meg O'Neill in a move that she said was deliberately designed to threaten her and her family.
A Woodside spokesperson said protesters had arrived at O'Neill's City Beach family home yesterday morning, accompanied by camera crews. Now, O'Neill, later in the day, told the media that it wasn't a harmless protest, but was designed to threaten me, my partner, and our daughter in our home. She said such acts by extremists should be condemned by anyone who respects the law and believes people should be safe to go about their business at home and at work. I agree with that, Meg O'Neill. I agree.
Yeah, me too. Now, a bit of good news here, Sean. The Matildas game on Monday night smashed all ratings records with more than 2 million viewers watching a female sports match for the first time.
Of course, the mighty Matildas, Australia's women's football team, won 4-0 against Canada, ensuring it tops its group and goes through to the knockout round of the World Cup. More than 2.4 million Australians watched the game on Channel 7 and its online video service 7+. It well and truly beat the other major sporting event of the night, the final men's Ashes test, shown on 9. Total reach of the Matildas game, which is defined as anyone who watches 1 minute of content on television or 15 seconds online, was 4.7 million, making it Seven's most watched program so far in 2023. Go the Matildas.
Isn't that extraordinary? That is such a good news story.
It's just wonderful what that team has done for sport, women's sport, but sport in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, don't you think it's interesting that total reach is defined as anyone who watches 1 minute of content on TV or 15 seconds online? It says something about our shortened attention span as soon as we're online, doesn't it? And that constant temptation just to flick away and keep scrolling.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Now, in international news, one of the world's largest oil and gas companies, ExxonMobil, is working with some major car manufacturers to expand into lithium as it pushes away from its traditional business.
You know the world is changing when ExxonMobil is talking about becoming a major lithium supplier. Bloomberg is reporting that the oil giant, which is a top 20 global company, is in talks with Tesla, Ford and Volkswagen about supplying them with lithium. The talks with potential customers are still early stage and the company has yet to lay out its plans for its potential lithium operations. The rapid global rollout of electric vehicles has raised the risk of bottlenecks and shortages in key battery minerals like lithium. That sparked a rush to invest in and secure supply. That's what ExxonMobil is trying to take advantage of, as well as transitioning away from fossil fuel products, which, of course, it's been drilling and selling for many, many years.
Sean, Russian missiles slammed into an apartment complex and a university building in Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's hometown yesterday morning, killing 6 people and wounding 75 others.
One of the 2 missiles that hit the central city of Kryvyi Rih destroyed part of an apartment building. Video showed black smoke billowing from corner units and burned out or damaged cars on a tree-lined street. The dead included a 10-year-old girl and her mother, according to Zelensky. The morning attack also destroyed part of a 4-story university building, according to Associated Press. The strike on Zelensky's hometown, which has been hit in the past, happened a day after the Ukrainian president appeared to warn of more attacks inside Russia. Not really sure whether it was retaliatory or not.
All right, up next is the Fear and Greed Daily interview. You're speaking today with Carlos Cacho, the chief economist at Jarden.
Yeah, well, look, we start off on interest rates, then we go on to house prices, then we go on to the outlook for the banks. It's a very broad-ranging conversation.
Yes, coming up next in the Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au. And Sean...
Wednesday, Michael, Wednesday.
Which means that it is How Do They Afford That Day, which is our sister podcast, a podcast really focusing on how to make your money work a little bit harder for you. And it's me and Canna Campbell, the founder of Sugar Mama TV, a financial planner, kind of going through a whole bunch of different things. But today, Sean, How Do They Afford That features a special guest.
Who?
It features our Fear and Greed colleague, Adam Lang.
I hope you're nicer to Adam than you are on the weekend edition.
That would not be difficult. We are particularly unkind to Adam on the weekend edition. No, and the thing is, what we're talking about today on How Do They Afford That is how to ask for a pay rise. And it seems like such a simple thing, but asking for a pay rise is really, really hard for a lot of people. And Adam he's been the CEO of a ASX listed media company. He's worked in a whole bunch of roles. He's an executive coach. He knows all of this stuff. He's heard it all before. And so we go through kind of what to do, the preparation you need to do before asking for a pay rise, even the words to use, the words not to use, and what to do if your boss says no. So it's really kind of some practical tips, a bit of a checklist, even almost a script to use when you go in and ask for a pay rise.
Now, I think at Fear and Greed, I mean, I think of Adam as a grand poobah. So if we want a pay rise, he's just given us the template to get one.
Yeah, that's right. And we can use his own words against him.
Yeah, and if he doesn't work, we'll say, well, hold on.
You've set a precedent here. So it is worth a listen. It is out today. How Do They Afford That is available wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll put a link in today's show notes as well. And look, that's Adam. Look, I would also say go to the Fear and Greed Instagram account, Fear and Greed Podcasts, and see Sean Aylmer as a Subway sandwich. Which is
Yeah. I had nothing to do with that.
Yeah. Oh, you still posed for the photo. I mean, admittedly, it was photoshopped afterwards. It's all in the context of Subway's big kind of turnaround that they have done and the competition that they're running at the moment. It's worth a look just for a bit of a laugh. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Wednesday, the 2nd of August, 2023. Make sure you're following the podcast and join us online, of course, as I mentioned, on Instagram, but also on LinkedIn, X, and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fear and Greed Business News. Have a great day.